All right, we are finally back. Round 16, 15, and 16. Pick 180, 181. Hormel division. Took a little extra time to get on the clock for these, and just wanted to remind everybody what I have taken thus far. As I had said when I started this series, for those that have followed along, appreciate you. Remember to donate to Fantasy Cares, fantasycares.org. Drafting my entire Scott Fishbowl team based on the WoRP tool. WoRP tool, southharmonff.com /WoRP. Check that out. We'll be releasing a whole class series, 20 to 25 hours worth of content talking about how to use WoRP, how to read these graphs in your league. So stay tuned for that. But back to the team thus far. So here's where we're at. I had talked about when am I going to take the tight ends. Last time around, I knew I needed to hit my tight end goal, which is probably going to end up being 2 tight ends based on this construction. Here's the optimal roster construction based on 2022 WoRP: 3 QBs, 5 running backs, 2 tight ends, 5 receivers, 6 droppable. I had gone into this saying my roster construction is probably going to be either 3 or 4 at quarterback, 2 or 3 at tight end. I'm going to go 5 at receiver and everything else running back. So you're going to end up with anywhere between 10 and 12 running backs on the roster when we're all said and done. Scott Fishbowl is 22 rounds. So here's where I'm at. 3 QBs. I took those in the first 3 rounds. Said the mistake numerous times, not picking quarterbacks with the same bye week, which I did. But I have 3 QBs. It forced me to take my third a little earlier than I wanted. But anyway, I'm at the 3 there. I'm probably good. Trey Lance just went. He would have been an interesting one to take, especially the second half of the year, if there were a chance where he's actually starting. Everyone assumes it's either going to be early in the year or not at all, but you never know. He would have been an interesting snag this late. He went. That's fine. I have 7 running backs. So with the goal being 10 to 12, I'm getting close to being there. With the idea that I went running back heavy, because if you look at the WoRP tool, and we will eliminate the tight ends and the quarterbacks for now, as you can see, really anywhere in this range, which is representing startable range in a week-to-week basis, you're trying to essentially always start running backs where you can. So my theory is I want to start as many running backs as possible. But a lot of the teams have gone with kind of a punt running back strategy in this tournament. And part of the reason why it's going to work for them, at least in different leagues, is going to be the fact that other people stop taking them. So I think just like if you were going to go hero or zero RB, you have to go a little bit to the uncomfortable range with taking receivers to where you're almost covering yourself for every possible scenario of attrition. It's the same with the running backs in this format. The reason I wouldn't play it, normally I'd play it the other way, right? But here, because of the scoring, I'm playing it running back heavy. But I think to really execute the running back heavy strategy, at least trying to win a tournament where there's 3,323 other teams, you have to go to the extreme, which means basically don't stop taking the running backs, with the idea that other people are banking that you do stop taking them. If everybody that didn't punt running back ended up taking 11, 12 of them, it would be really hard in this format to execute a zero or hero running back strategy, because a lot of your later targets are being eaten up by the teams that really shouldn't be taking them. So that's the theory behind it. And the same goes for taking receivers. If you can only start 4 receivers in a league, it actually makes sense to double, triple, quadruple down on that strategy, especially in something like this or FFPC where it's only 20, 22-man rosters. Double down on the strategy. Take 6 receivers. Take that advantage and remove it a little bit. It's a little harder to do at receiver because there's a really flat range where there's a ton of them. But take that advantage and magnify it, right, to the point where other teams are uncomfortable simply because you're doubling and tripling down on what you actually need for your lineup. So that's the theory here. So what am I going to do? I have my 4 receivers. They have basically been separated out. I took them all back to back rounds, and then I stopped. I have a stack in there with JSN. So I'm at 4 receivers, 7 running backs, 3 quarterbacks. Probably only taking 1 more receiver. I've wrestled the last couple rounds as to where to take that receiver. Here's the best on the board right now at receiver, Allen Lazard. Then you have just a bunch of guys, and I'm probably waiting another round on the receiver simply because I think we're just talking about an extremely flat range in here. I mean, you could sell me on 6 or 7 different players in this range, and you could also sell me on some guys that are even further down where you go, if one thing breaks their way, I'd rather have that guy over everybody else. So I'm going to fade receiver. Quarterback, As I said, Trey Lance went, so they're off the board. I got to decide when I want to take a tight end. I'm committed to probably only taking 2. Maybe I end up with 3, just depending on if I don't take a 4th quarterback, which I probably won't with what we know right now about where the quarterback landscape sits. So where do I attack the quarterbacks? There's still probably 15 tight ends I'm interested in, but I also don't want to get greedy and say, you know what, a couple of those will fall to me, especially knowing that if I plan on taking 3, at some point I'm probably going to have to take them in back-to-back rounds. So I think I'm going to take a tight end here. I think I'm going to take Dawson Knox. So that's going to be my first pick. Now, here's the thing with Dawson Knox. I understand Dalton Kincaid's there. My theory on tight end has always been studs or duds. I think in this format, I'm essentially going to say I'm willing to start Dawson Knox every single week and just ride out the highs and lows. And there's going to be more lows than highs. But if I can get 4 or 5 highs out of the 12, 13, 14 weeks that I start him, it's going to be 12 weeks that I probably start him prior to their bye week. If I can get even 4 replacement level games there, I'm probably okay with it. Because again, here's the WoRP chart. If I remove all the positions but the tight ends, it's basically flat. We're in this range where all of these are flat. You're hoping you get a player because right now we're obviously down to the point where we're down past 24 tight ends have been taken. So from the draft perspective, you're already down in here. And what am I striving for with some of the guys I take here, especially if I take multiples? Just let me end up somewhere in here. For the season, let me hope I can end up somewhere in here. On a weekly basis, let me hope I can have enough weeks where I fall in here, maybe 5, 6 max, depending on the platoon that I come up with. That's all you're hoping for. And I think with the quarterback stack, it gives me more incentive to stack in this range to kind of elevate the weeks that Dawson Knox does have a good game. It probably correlates with Josh Allen also doing so. So with that, I think it makes total sense to take Dawson Knox. I don't love it, but I was willing to wait it out to a point where, you know what, he's probably going to go before I pick again. And I'm fine taking him. So that's going to be my first pick. It is a week 13 bye, so I'm going to have to figure it out. But I think tight end, given this curve right here, tight end is a position where I'm essentially fine, kind of just waiting for stuff to break. And already know I'm fishing in really, really suspect waters to begin with. So I'm fine just taking a couple in there. Even if I only take 2, I'm fine waiting for one to emerge on waivers, and hopefully I can get above baseline production. So we're going to lock in Dawson Knox as my first pick. Now, there's a temptation to go with another tight end. There's probably 7 or 8 in here where I'm like, you know what? I can tell myself a story where that's a really good bet. That's a good shot to take. But I'm going to pass. I'm going to take a running back here that I do think has some opportunity that's a little bit better than everybody else's. So I am eyeing Chase Brown with this pick as my 8th running back. I think he is one of those that stands out here where I go, if stuff breaks right, I could see Chase Brown going to a guy you weekly start, even above a couple of the other guys that I've already taken. There's a few other good names on here. I mean, obviously someone like Kareem Hunt could easily sign somewhere, jumps right back into a similar role that he's had in the past, and boom. Zamir White, Josh Jacobs could hold out, not be there. Zamir White could literally probably be another Chase Brown, similar, although Chase Brown's on a better team. Then you have a couple guys, Jerome Ford, Tajay Spears probably are going to have roles, same with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So you can sell yourself on those. But I think if there's a guy where you could go, okay, in week 7, he's starting, whether it's because of an injury or whatnot, I think it's probably Chase Brown. So I think at this point, given that we've seen 55 running backs come off the board already, I'm fine taking a shot on Chase Brown in the offense that he's in. So that's going to be my second pick here. I will be at 8 running backs. And at that point, I'm probably only eyeing 2 or 3 more. So I'm probably going to be pretty selective which the types that I pick up, especially in a point per carry league. But for that, I'm pretty happy. So 8 running backs, 3 quarterbacks, a tight end now, and the 4 receivers. 6 picks left. We'll talk and recap some roster construction over the last 6 rounds. But really just trying to follow the WoRP chart, trying to draft this team. Again, it's kind of for fun. But obviously, this is something that I'm huge in terms of the way that I play Dynasty, the way that I approach any unique league. So it's kind of cool just to build a team literally based off this. Whether it works or doesn't, I kind of like to go to the extremes in a format like this, because if you just go based on ADP and build a balanced team, you're not going to win. You're just not going to win. I'm guaranteeing one thing with my roster. It's going to be a team that's going to be pretty unique. 3 quarterbacks at the top, an extremely heavy running back build to the point where I've seen some 8, 9, even 10 running back builds. I haven't seen any 12 running back builds with a punt tight end in a format where a lot of people are pumping up tight ends as flexes. So with that, it's going to be unique. It's going to be a 1-out-of-1 team. Now, that could mean I finish in the bottom 2% of the tournament. Or it could be, hey, it's a unique team that has taken a slightly different path than everybody else. So hopefully everybody's enjoyed these videos. 3 more to go. It's easy picking on the turn to be able to do these with back-to-back picks, so it worked out nicely. Any questions, post them in the chat, post them on Twitter, post them on the YouTube feed. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed this, though, and we'll be back around 17 and 18 whenever I get on the clock.